Hello YouTube, I hope that everybody is doing very well indeed. Thank you for joining me. Though I have not met one who has cornered the market as it relates to truth claims, I realize there exists a cornerstone. Here, you will find an emotionless, information theoretic in origin, participatory universe. There also exists a membrane of deceit. Its function, in part, is the allowance of concealment. The refusal of liability has become more easily perceived as it relates to suspicion, danger, and the disregard of inner disrepute. Political, economic, and social experiences are polarized in a manner unthinkable. The extent downward, inward, and backward is beyond comprehension. So we desperately grab onto manufactured objects and events that are entirely independent of the observer. Really? Indeed, our channels of perception are not always totally reliable. Anthropocentric thought, intermingling modes abounds. Illusions are plentiful. Hopelessness suffocates and empowerment forsaken. The war on consciousness and the collapse of our external accumulations is a process. Truly, it is amazing the amount of apathy which exists, how it feeds those who are shown their belief entitlement, that which is beyond, that which is behind the facade, let's say, is not considered, nor is it an option when pursuit of truth no longer is relevant. Crippling biases and false paradigms are supersized in this economy of engineered apathy and forged acquiescence. Don't get me wrong, time is not on our side. I don't wish to stroke your need for safety any longer, nor do I wish to act as a fear-mongerer. So we can protest to the 12th of never. We can engage in the legal cha-cha and political jitterbug throughout the dark night of the soul. We can refuse to participate and declare things invalid till we are blue in the face as we tumble down the rabbit hole. The elite edifices, the houses of ill repute, and restrictive rotunda will continue to shrewdly and deviously adjust precedences. So we continue to believe we have ample opportunity for change. Ample opportunity. I'd rather not assume such, but this does not excuse me from the fight. So, many think preoccupation with image and respect for reason will provide the edge to conquer those psychotic things that roam amongst us, mostly in the shadows. Yet, the past of mankind has shown that tyranny defecates on such imaginings. This said, as it relates to the sham of Ferguson, how is it so easy for many to ignore that George Soros donated $33 million, if I am correct, to various so-called social justice organizations? How is it so convenient not to solve the disconnect of local protest when looking intently at the politicized and polarized nightmare that we have just recently witnessed and continue to observe its future reverberations. The investment obviously was not merely meddling by means of inserting protesters into the community over a period of months. If you take a closer look, you may find a piecemeal of social engineering with the hopes of democratic social reform. Being a capitalist who admittedly enjoys the feeling of absolute power, maybe even harbors messianic tendencies, and via his actions has been affectionate with the idea of absolute amorality. What makes you think his participation was anything but potentially malignant? We must remember the outgrowth of public outrage does not necessarily equate to justice. It could simply be an exercise in extracting a pound of flesh. Though we cannot deny that internalized biases could contribute to a situation, we must not turn from a more devilish episode of contrived manipulation. So, indeed, racial elements can contribute, but the deception of mankind is so beyond race and class at this point. However, race, ethnicity, and nationality on a grand scale is used as a scalpel and a blunt instrument as it relates to the culling of man. We do ourselves an injustice if exploration stops prematurely. It would be dishonest to not admit that weaponized political correctness was not employed. Once again, a situation was co-opted, it would appear, to create division, drive people to their fears, and highlight various means of trauma. Remember that. Highlighting various means of trauma. Thus, using the opportunity as an agent that activates the dumbed down. This, of course, allows the media circus to be more efficient in its indoctrination. And identity politics, subculture society, would be devastating to the melting pot imaginative intellectual play. Indeed, this is a rightful move if attempting to secure a culturally homogeneous society. No? Even Matthew chapter 9 verse 17 from the King James Version tells us, quote, "Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved." End quote. Think on this. Think on this. Like the right, the political right, the left is an enemy to the American people, and especially to blacks. Many forget political capital is absent when fighting the issue of supposed black-on-black crime, something they are keen on avoiding, I might add. Oh, I said supposed because we already know this black-on-black mess is yet another wordplay to monopolize on separation and a means of controlling the narrative. Racial exclusivity, as it relates to crime, is a farce. It's likened to an imaginative creature. Crime, no matter the ethnic grouping, generally speaking, is driven by opportunism and proximity. This is old hat, but bears repeating. Anyway, remember this was partly about gathering political capital during the lifespan of an orchestrated crisis. I do not know how you see it, but this ordeal of human death and misfortune appears to be yet another pre-packaged, non-organic movement of late, probably for many, many centuries. But let's focus on the debacles that we have seen of late. This is part of the social change industry, is what we are truly experiencing now. We would be wise to remember that once an opportunity is energized, it becomes a vehicle of expression. In this case, it is social unrest that utilizes a bully pulpit of sorts, which does not fully address the concerns but merely uses the opportunity to fuel, to achieve velocity, to manipulate public awareness. Unless we are willing to get beyond the permutations of human conflict, then we will not deal with the war on our consciousness. This is far more than an assault on our physical selves. Just another example of a day at the office. Remember, I encourage you to ponder. Falsehood should never be the only means of success in litigation, nor should dishonesty be the universal means of subsistence. Thank you for listening.